Welcome, guys. Live narration Sunday night, just shy of 3 hours after the pairings have been announced. These guys not wasting time, and it is the epic rematch that many of us have been hoping to see. The linear curve playing on the linear curtains against UD. And fun fact, why did I say rematch? I mean, yeah, these guys have played plenty of times before, but for context here, UD is the loss that Lanier has taken earlier in this tour. They played in the winner's bracket earlier. It was a great set. It went to 3. Maybe UD got a little bit lucky in the third game, but the bottom line, UD won. He took out Lanier, and if he does that again, he's going to get quite the reputation, first of all, as the linear slayer, but he's going to eliminate the former champion and runner-up, the linear curve. If he can beat him for a second time in this round 6 best of 3, like I said, a rematch from round 2. UD, on the other hand, not only is having a good tournament and looking more like his old self than he has in years now, but also UD is a previous money winner as well. He was the third place finisher in the original CALLOUS Invitational, which was, you guessed it, won by Lanier. There's a lot of history. These guys absolutely know each other. They've played against each other various times for various tours. That is probably a part of why they were content to let's just play. Let's not play the game. We don't need to prep all week. Let's just play. So here we are. This is, like I said, this is still Sunday night. They're not wasting any time. The other pairings are up, but 3 hours after I announced those pairings, these guys are good to go. We saw a Metacham lead from UD. This is very Dexa-esque. It has baton pass, as many of them do. And we are going to we got a mini baton pass chain here. So Zapdos has it. Celebi probably has it. We haven't actually seen it from Metacham either, but I'm going to say that all 3 of these probably have baton pass. And we're looking at a mini chain here. It's possible that both the Metacham and the Celebi, either one of them could not have it. In case there's a more traditional BP'er in the back. I'm not sure if we're trying to set up a Gyarados here or a Rhydon, or this could even be a Marowak squad potentially. But we'll see how Lanier deals with this. As it happens, Perish Song, which was used by Lanier's Celebi, which is a very uncommon move, is one of the absolute best and most obnoxious answers to baton pass chains, because of course you baton pass the parish count with you, and no matter what you do, no matter what substitute you're behind or how many stat boosts you get, you could be at plus 20, you will still die to the parish song. So that's a pretty hard counter to the team that UD seems to be bringing. This could be a great matchup by dumb luck for Lanier. Now granted, there's plenty of dangerous things he could pass to here, such as this Metacham. Now, it's going to be met by a Donphan, which very often carries Protect. Obviously, with it just coming in here, we don't know the set, but the most common Donphan set, in my opinion, is Earthquake Toxic, Rapid Spin, Protect. This could totally not be that set. It could be a Choice Bander. It could have Hidden Power. It could have a lot of things. It could just be a non-toxic set. Who knows? But what I do know is the Protect is very good against Choice Band Pokemon, which the Metacham, even if it does have Baton Pass, very well may be a Choice Bander. Right now, there's no Sand in play, so we don't really know. And, yeah, there's a chance that there might not be Sand, certainly for Lanier. And UD's got to know this as well. There is absolutely going to be a Magneton on Lanier's team. It screams it. Every single Pokemon that he's shown wants Skarmory to not be there. Clearly, there's going to be a mag from Lanier. For UD, it's less clear. There's got to be some physical heavy hitters in the back somewhere that benefit from all this passing. Really, the bottom line of deducing UD's team is figuring out what exactly he's trying to pass. Is he trying to pass Calm Mind boosts with Celebi? Is that what's happening here? Is he Agila passing with this Zapdos? Are we passing Swords Dance in the back somewhere? I'm not clear. Like I said, there could easily be things like Rhydon, Gyarados, Marowak maybe in the back for UD. Both players taking their time here. Regice is certainly not one of the pokes that I thought was going to be on the team for UD. So that's going to catch me and probably Lanier too off guard. Certainly Gyarados has to get out of the way. Thunderbolt is, depending on EVs, can be a one-hit KO here. Certainly, if that's a maxed modest Regice, I would say that would do it. And if it's Thunder as opposed to Thunderbolt, that would certainly do the trick as well. So there's definitely some things here that Lanier has to be careful of. At the same time, should he switch to, say, Celebi or Donphan, anticipating Thunderbolt, and get hit with an Ice Beam, especially a Stab Ice Beam from a pretty high special attack stat on Regice, that would hurt quite a bit as well. He's going to go for Thunder Wave, which is pretty generically safe here. Can't go too far wrong with that. There isn't anything other than the Donphan that would want to take that. Celebi, of course, with Natural Cure, but both Celebi and Donphan have to be careful of the Ice Beam, like we discussed. Metagross is generally considered one of the best answers to Regice in the game. That's certainly, it's not a hard and fast rule, but basically Regice just doesn't take Meteor Mash as well, obviously. But the Thunder Wave is relevant potentially here, and I would assume that UD has a decent switch of sorts into Metagross. I mean, worst case scenario, Zapdos is not a bad Metagross switch here. The question becomes, does he actually have a bulky Water on this team, which he may or may not. But we're only on turn 8, and they're still thinking. Both these guys, I mean, they know how close they are to the money in this tour. This is the real deal. We are very deep at this point. Round 6, both of these guys are very close to getting themselves that cash money. And this is going to be a lot less wet and wild than some of the previous rounds where people were just clicking and playing rapidly and treating it like a ladder game. They're taking this seriously. We're deep in the tour. They know what's on the line. And I don't blame them for using their clock. Lanier there took over a minute to make that decision. He settled on going for Earthquake, and he's going to be met by the Zapdos, Thunderbolt, and Full Power, respectively. Here's another Thunderbolt, but Rock Slide comes down for the first knockout of the set. That's the Zapdos going down for UD, and of course, with that, Lanier taking the 6-5 lead. It doesn't lead the Metagross in that great of a place. He's at 15%, and he's paralyzed. He'll get a little bit higher in a moment when the lefties kick in, but clearly the advantage here, just for a brief moment, is with Lanier. Anybody's game, of course. And it's UD figuring out what to do. Metacham is certainly an option here. He might be calcing if the Regice can kill him with Thunderbolt or not. He could fish for maybe a Boom if he's got Substitute on his Celebi. He could try to bait out an Explosion, though that does run the risk of a Last Poke previously unrevealed Dugtrio, which I don't think is going to be the case. I could see it being like Last Poke Lax or Last Poke Tar for Linear, but certainly there is going to be a Magneton in there somewhere. UD decides, yes, I can kill you with Thunderbolt. Otherwise, he wouldn't make this switch. That gets a little bit messy if this meta has Protect, which, I mean, you've got to think it's last move Boom, right? He hasn't shown that, obviously, but you've got to think that. And here comes Umbreon, which has seen a decent amount of use in this tour. So I guess we're really going all in on setting up the Gyarados as basically the core of this team. The Umbreon also would remove Gengar for the sake of letting Donphan actually spin, so I could see the reason for the inclusion here, but removing Gengar also removes a very dangerous threat to Gyara. So I could see what we're doing with an Umbreon here. It also provides a Wish user to make some of those guys tankier. And like I said, the last poke was going to be Mag. So this is kind of this is really similar to the famous team that was used last year by Triangles, created by Osgood, that Moltres lead weather change team. This is a very similar team. It's not all in on Lax. It has other win cons, either the Meta or the Gyara, so it's a little less dependent on just one poke, which I think is a positive change. But the core of the utility Celebi, the Donphan, the Magneton, and the Umbreon, supporting two other pokes, is the same. Focus Punch coming down. Intimidate, and still going to do a lot, despite resistance and Intimidate. So clearly Metacham is banded, if there were any doubt before. Gyarados is going to negate that damage with a Wish. The only way that would have gotten really bad is if that had been a critical hit, which of course it wasn't. And certainly Metacham is going to have to get out of the way, being stuck on Focus Punch here. Linear probably obligated to attack, but there's virtually zero chance that UD stays in. So maybe Linear makes a double switch. They are both getting a little low, only 14 turns in. It's certainly been a slower paced game, this one. I don't know how long I've been doing this narration, but it feels like we're probably approaching the 10-ish minute mark. I mean, it's been a hot minute. We're only 14 turns in. A lot of the time, an earlier round in this tour, we'd already be in game 2. They would have already played 40 turns, but I could very much appreciate that these guys are taking it seriously, as they should, with the amount of money on the line, still sitting at a whopping 1150, by far the best prize pool we've ever had, though of course I'm still hoping that increases. And unsurprisingly, Linear does make a double switch because, like I said, there's just no chance in hell that UD ever focus punches again there. It just doesn't happen. And it would have killed the meta had he done that, but that is such a brutally difficult play to make. What Linear's trying to do is he's trying to lefties up that meta and get some use, maybe a boom out of it, to the shock of nobody. Hey, look, there's a Magneton. And actually, that just confirms this Regice is actually quite difficult to switch into for Linear. The Bolt Beam combo, especially with a high special attack stat and with one of them being Stab, is actually quite challenging for Linear's team. Metagross is/was the best answer, but that got pretty low thanks to losing the 1v1 pretty hard against Zapdos. I mean, I guess he won because he actually did kill the Zapdos, but the meta got himself pretty low and now is not going to be a reliable counter to this Regice. I don't know if on UD's end I love this, but he might not have a great switch to the Gyra either. But what's really awkward about this is that there's no sand, and there might not be sand at all. I don't know that UD's team... I mean, he needs rock resists, right? Metacham doesn't really count. It does resist rock, but, like, let's be real here. It's a choice bander. It's frail. It's not built to last. And both the Zapdos and the Regice are rock weak. And, I mean, really, like, do you think Meta really takes a +1 rock slide all that well? Is it really a rock resist? So there's got to be Swampert, or it doesn't have to be Swampert, but there's got to be some kind of rock resist in the back for UD. And I don't know that T-Tower fits. I mean, are the last two, like, T-Tower Swampert? They could be, but it just... I don't know. I'm not convinced that's going to be the case. Here's an opportunity for UD, if he can make a prediction and do some damage here. Metacham's so dangerous. If he can pull the trigger, he gets a critical hit Brick Break for 66, leaving Donphan after lefties at 40, which should live another non-critical hit. Here's Gengar. That's not a rock resist. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to be thinking for UD. Here's Focus Punch trying to catch Umbreon. Wow. Interesting. Protect there was fairly obvious. I almost wonder if UD should have just Ice Punch there to not give away the Focus Punch there, because I think if he Ice Punches into the Protect, then he Focus Punches, I think at that point he would have caught the Umbreon. But instead, UD going to get bailed out by some BS. He's going to catch the 10% freeze on the Umbreon. Then he's going to follow it up with a critical hit. And all of a sudden, we got a real problem here. If the Umbreon fails to do its job of killing the Gengar, which is not a certainty just yet, because you can pass a wish theoretically to that. Or no, it is the wish user. I'm dumb. You can give it Leech Seed back maybe. But yeah, the Umbreon is probably not going to catch the Gar. I guess it doesn't matter because the Gar is going to blow up here. And he's going to fail to kill the Gyarados, actually. Gyarados gets out of the way, and Umbreon is going to fodder itself. Brick Break there. First knockout now for UD. Leaves us at a 5-4. Last poke still unrevealed, but it has to be a rock resist for UD. So we could certainly rule out Tyranitar. It has to be a rock resist. I don't know if it's meta, or if it's Flygon, or if it's Jirachi. I'm open-minded. Maybe it's just an off-pert or an end-pert, but it has to be a rock resist for UD. 4-4, and Selby comes in. Metacham, very dangerous when there's no spikes and no sand. This is a pretty ideal matchup, I think, for Metacham. I mean, yes, there is the Gyarados to check it, but no spikes, no sand. It can come in consistently. It can do damage consistently. This is probably about as good of a Metacham matchup as you're realistically going to get. The opponent does not have all that much to disrupt it. Likewise, I like Regice a lot in this matchup. So on paper, I like UD's side of this quite a bit. But in practice, we're looking at a much closer game here. UD putting on the pressure with those +1 HP fires, looking for that game-breaking crit that is yet to come. Regis sneaks in on the recover turn. This is a very difficult Pokemon to switch into at this stage. There's a great double for UD. Celebi comes in at this point. Brick Break comes down, aimed at Magneton. Celebi obviously is going to resist that. It's not Choice Banded this whole time. It switches over to Shadow Ball. That is absolutely not what Lanier wants to see, and he is going to have to be money with his predictions now. Gets out of the way, goes to Magneton. He's seated here. Swampert is the last. Unsurprising. There's the rock resist that he needs. Hidden Power would have devastated him there had it been grass, but it's not. Earthquake there, not the right prediction for UD either. Could have potentially killed the Celebi there had he pulled the trigger on Ice Beam, but he didn't. Leech Seed comes down as the Medicham comes in. Very dangerous here. Should Celebi stay in? Should UD click Shadow Ball? Down that goes. Focus Punch? Nope. Lanier going to call that bluff. There's the flinch, and there is more Leech Seed health back for the Celebi. Can UD click Focus Punch again? Does he have the balls to click Focus Punch a second time here after he was just called out by Lanier? Can UD make this play? I think it would reward him here. I think if he focus punches, he would catch something. I'm right. He would have nailed the Donphan there and probably killed it, but he's unable to pull the trigger. Obviously, way easier for me as a spectator. Not under the pressure of the clock, not with the money on the line, but I saw that one. It would have been a great play. Giga Drain there for UD. Toxic missing for Donphan. Not the biggest deal on a natural cure poke, but insult to injury when he's already behind. UD, however, not able to Calm Mind on the switch. Misses the opportunity. Regis again sneaking in on recover. Tight 4-4 late game. Huge stab Ice Beam for 64%. Leech Seed does connect and Celebi's faster, so we've got a recover incoming as UD again goes to his own Celebi here. Calm Mind to put some pressure on. Hidden Power doing zilch. There is Perish Song to stop this, but it's got the limited PP, only 8 to begin with, and after this use, he's got only 5 of them left. He will not have this as an answer forever. If UD can stall Linear out of Perish Songs, then this offensive Celebi plus Regis combo is going to be an issue. There's the Hidden Power Fire, 43%. The other thing that UD can do is simply find a crit. There are a lot of ways for Linear to lose this game, and he is going to have to show why he is one of the absolute greatest of all time in order to maneuver his way out of this. There are so many things that could go wrong here for Linear. Can he avoid them? Celebi dies to Perish Song now. If it does not switch, that is a free Ice Beam or Thunder Wave for UD. He makes the right call, lands the Thunder Wave on the Magneton as it comes in. Donphan obviously would have been immune. Hidden Power Fire and Hidden Power Fire or Ice. It was resisted by Pert, so that must be HP Fire. They're staring each other down. Celebi with the Toxic going on. Has not shown its last move, but it certainly looks like an offensive Celebi. You would think that it is last move Psychic, but we don't know that definitively. Swampert comes in nevertheless. Sees himself staring down the opposing Celebi. UD here with a couple of options. He's been going to Regis in this situation. It is starting to get a little bit low. It's at 51%, and that's certainly what Lanier thinks is going to happen. He puts the pressure on Swampert, and he makes a move that would hit the opposing Regis. Instead, on the switch, he's going to Leech Seed into the opposing Celebi, and again, UD going to begin Calm Minding up, and the only answer Lanier has to this offensive Celebi is once again clicking Perish Song. Hidden Power Fire, Hidden Power blah. Coming back. Lanier can recover, but he's got to be careful here. Regis comes in, and again, Regis is going to have a free opportunity here. I think you just click Ice Beam here universally, and he agrees. There's Ice Beam, there's the Donphan KO, and UD retakes the lead. Meta comes in, he's got lefties. We still haven't seen the last move. Full Para, not at a good time. Maybe could have blown up on Swampert there, but misses the opportunity. Earthquake going for the killing blow on the Metagross rather, finds the Celebi. Protect and Hidden Power Grass come down. Again, Celebi into Celebi. The Parish songs are down to only 4 at this point. Temporary solution to a permanent problem. But when you're Lanier in this position, you've got to do what you've got to do, and he's going to click it once again. There is Hidden Power Fire coming down for UD. UD definitely in command in this game. I would be ridiculously impressed if Lanier somehow found a way to win this game, but I really have a hard time envisioning that happening from this current game state. Stranger things have happened, not saying it can't be done, but man, that is a tough ask for Lanier. UD has a very good matchup here with both the Metagross and the Regice being, I think, big threats in this particular team matchup. UD's got the offensive Mons. UD's got the tempo advantage. If Lanier wins this, I mean, I've stopped betting against Lanier in general because he's a god among men. But man, would he have to play like a god to get out of this. UD overwhelmingly with the advantage here. Ken Lanier, the most successful player in CALLOUS Invitational history by a wide margin. Can Lanier really find the way to win this game against a very capable CALLOUS Invitational money-making SPL starting UD? I don't know, man. Even Zeus has limits. I guess Zeus is Asta, who's already out, but even deities, gods, mega men like Lanier, there are limits to these things. I don't know that he's going to be able to do this. He's managed to get that Metagross, which was in the red before, all the way the fuck back up to 93% from just lefties. All right, I'm seeing GGs here. They must be ahead of us in real time. I can't imagine. Yeah, there we go. Lanier's going to concede at this point. I mean, can you blame him? Can you really, truly blame him here? And I am going to do something right now that I have not done in a live narration in a long time, which is go take a desperation piss, because it's going to start going down my fucking leg. Give me 2 minutes, I'll be back. Oh boy, I feel like I just lost 5 pounds. Whew. I have not had that sweet of a release since the last time I was invited to Jabba's mother's house, which was just the other night. But nevertheless, whew, that was much needed. Well, good. Looks like I didn't miss anything. Game 2 hasn't started yet, and Game 1, as we just saw, pretty much played out the way that, given the team matchup, it was almost always going to play out. UD caught the freeze on the Umbreon, which helped, but I really don't know that the Gengar was the biggest X factor in this game. The Gyarados was largely kept in check here. Even if, I mean, the Gengar is one of the 2 answers to the Gyarados, but even if the Gengar had been picked off by the Umbreon, which in this case was a little bit trickier than normal because it was a Focus Punch Boom-Gar. So worst case, it could probably at least trade with the Umbreon by Focus Punching it on the way in and then booming on it when he needs to. But even then, the Gyarados would have been checked by the best Gyarados counter in the game in Zapdos. So, I don't know. This just felt like a very tough matchup, I think, for Lanier. This is UD kind of in his element, in his prime. One of the things that UD has always done well, when UD is at his best, it's with stuff like this. It's when he's bringing these random, janky, unpredictable teams like this. There's no way that Lanier could have prepped for this. I mean, not that either of them prepped because they played very, very quickly after pairings were announced. But, I mean, this is not one of those ones where you're on turn 3, you instantly recognize the core structure, you instantly recognize the team, you already know what's going to be in the back. That's very much not the case. So when you're playing against this team that UD brought, whether you're Lanier or somebody else, it keeps you guessing. You don't know what's going to be there. Like the Gengar in the back, for example, I don't know how he could have known that. The Swampert in the back, we knew there was going to be a rock resist. Did it specifically have to be Swampert? No, but it makes sense. Likewise, the Gengar with the Focus Punch. I mean, this is not a team. Whatever this 6 is, this is not a known team. This is not a known structure. Very well might be something that UD built on his own without help from anybody else. And yeah, that certainly helps in tournament play when your opponent just doesn't know. And like I said, I think Lanier's team, I don't think it was bad. It just seemed like a really good matchup for UD. The Regis seemed to be in a really good place. The Metacham seemed to be in a really good place. The Gyarados was never going to get it done, staring down both the Boom Thunderbolt Gar and the Zapdos on the other side. Yeah, it just seemed like a really good matchup for UD. Obviously, I've never seen either of these teams before from either of them, so I mean, this is all just my perception watching it live for the first time, just as you guys are, but definitely felt to me, just as a spectator, as an analyst, as someone who like kind of sort of a little bit knows about ADV, to me it just felt like a very favorable matchup, I think, for UD. And I do like what Linear brought. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad team. It just it walked into a tough matchup. But basically a variant on the classic team that we saw in last year's CALLOUS Invitational, the all-in on Lax team with the Moltres, the triangle used, that other players have since recycled a couple of times. So a bit of a gap this time between Game 1 and Game 2. As I say every time this happens, it's just one of the beauties of the live narration. Sip of my drink. Here we go. Hood whole milk, guys. Drink it. Alrighty. Here is Game 2. You guys saw Game 1 just the same time that I did. This is all live. UD won. And if he were to win this game or a hypothetical Game 3, he is going to be Lanier's only losses in this tour. Lanier will have lost twice to UD and be eliminated solely by that player. And as a fun fact, this is something I just thought of now, just off memory, that happened last year as well. Blightbringer was a player that only lost to ZF last year. ZF beat Blightbringer twice and knocked him out of the tour. So this would not be the first time in CALLOUS Invitational history that a player has lost to only one opponent throughout the entirety of the tour and is nevertheless eliminated without money. But obviously, Linear does not want that to happen. He's on the bottom once again, and he's got a Hari lead. He's going to go immediate Magneton, and that's going to be potentially risky here. Is this YOLO Scarm? Nope. Alright, so that was either ideal or awful for Linear, depending on whether or not that was YOLO Scarm. It is ideal in that UD went for Drill Peck as opposed to Spikes and just instantly lost his Scarm, or it would have been a nightmare if, oh fuck, I Drill Pecked, you caught me, as UD's grinning, tee hee hee, and then he fucking devastates him with the HP ground. But he didn't have that. That is not YOLO Scarm, and we have an overwhelming turn 3 advantage, rather, for Linear here. And insult to injury, I think UD does not have a Dugtrio. There'd be nothing to think about. It would already be in play, right? Why wouldn't you just insta-Dug here? So I would say that UD is in an overwhelming hole already. And yeah, the best thing he could do here is go to Blissey. Really, really good start for Linear. That's where he wants to be. And very cute here. How I feel right now, he says, based on this nickname. Frankly, kind of stupid. That's cute. UD, a humble guy. And probably drunk right now. But he's feeling, frankly, kind of stupid. See what he did there as a pun. UD's not stupid, but that very well may have been a mistake. The Drill Peck was cute. The reason that he did that, it wasn't an idiotic play. The reason that he made that play was because he didn't want the Hariyama to stay in and focus punch again. It wasn't just a completely wrong in 100% of situations play. Imagine if he had spiked up again and eaten another focus punch. It would really fucking hurt, right? The first one did 49%. So, like, you get why he drill pecked there. I don't think it was bad. I mean, it turned out to be wrong, but, like, it wasn't a play that's just universally wrong. Had Linear gone for focus punch again, the drill peck would have been the right play. So he happened to lose the mind game, but I mean, it wasn't just a blatantly idiotic play. But that being said, with the way that it worked out, that is real bad, I think, for UD. Not having the spike is so detrimental for the kind of team that UD seems to be playing, which looks like just generic TSS. It should just be Swampert X in the back, whether X is Metagross, Aerodactyl. It's not going to be Dugtrio, we know that. Metagross, Aerodactyl, Salamence, various things, Starmie, various things that it can be. But yeah, just Swampert X in the back. And very interestingly, I really... Linear has brought an Umbreon for a second time here. He seems to really be a fan of that poke at the moment. And things going bad to worse here for UD. His Gengar almost eaten by this Umbreon. His Fire Blast misses as he gets charmed. I mean, this game is going about as well as it realistically would for Linear, and it's going about as badly for UD as it realistically was going to go. It just, yeah, it's really early, but it can be very, very difficult to come back from these early deficits. There are definitely ADV players, Triangle's certainly among them, but not the only one, who believe that the most important part by far of an ADV game is the first, say, 12 to 15 turns. And I would love to know if someone who is less lazy than I am and wanted to put a little more time in, looked at the statistics of SPL games, or just World Cup games, CALLOUS Invitational games, high-level ADV games in general. Basically, what percentage of the time does the player with the lead in the first 12 to 15 turns go on to win the game? And Triangles and others, like I said, are of the belief that that number is very high. If that stands to reason, if that theory is correct, and obviously one game is way, 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 way too small of a sample size, but if that theory is correct, then I think UD might be in some trouble here. We saw the Aerodactyl come in. That makes it all but certain that it's last poke Swampert. It could still be Metagross, but it's Swampert. And this just seems really hard. The whole team for UD is going to really lack offensive pressure with the spike not there, especially when one of the biggest threats in the Gengar is also not going to be there when the Umbreon eats it. The Tyranitar is not DD, it is special, so that's not going to clean up the game for him. This could be a slightly offensive-oriented Blissey, and likewise, it could be somewhat of an offensive Pert, which I don't think it's going to be. But overall, I think it's going to be very difficult for UD to win this game. Where there's an arrow, there's a way. Certainly the Aerodactyl is going to be UD's best bet. Without knowing the exact team for Linear, how well he can handle the arrow is yet to be determined. And I hate calling games when they're this early already over, but this just seems incredibly in Linear's favor, and I think very, very likely we're going to be headed to a Game 3. Obviously, UD is not and should not concede, but I'm having a hard time imagining that UD comes back in this game. Like I said, when there's an arrow, there's a way. I've seen that Pokemon do very stupid things. Could randomly just get a bunch of flinches in a row or crits or whatever. These things can and do happen. But this is all Linear, and we're very, very likely going to a third game. UD has not really gotten any offensive momentum in this game. He's been behind pretty much the whole time since his Skarmory got eaten. And here's his attempt to come back. He is going to try to get the Snorlax down with this arrow, which I believe with only one curse boost he can do. I do think Rock Slide and Double Edge would both be good enough. just figuring out which move to use, and Linear figuring out how to respond. I almost wonder if there's an argument here for Linear to just go to Magneton here. Even if UD does end up Earthquaking, I mean, what does the Magneton really do at this point? The Gengar gets eaten by the Umbreon, and Magneton doesn't really beat Gengar anyway unless they both come in at the exact same time at full health. Magneton's not going to beat the T-Tower. Magneton certainly isn't going to beat the Blissey. I almost wonder if that's the safer option, but he's going to let the Lax go. What Linear is thinking about there is there a realistic opportunity later on to get the Lax in, get a rest off, or get any other kind of use out of it? And I do agree with the decision that he came to, which is probably not. So he's going to let that go, and UD is going to get on the board, but UD is still very, very behind here. Not only down 5-4, but there's also the fact that his Gengar is very low at just 17%. Would have a very hard time switching in on most things. UD is going to gain ground here, and I guess Linear did realize that his Magneton is really not all that useful here, letting it stay into a Pokemon that he already knew had Fire Blast. That was not a surprise. He saw that earlier, so he let it go, and that's going to result in the Hariyama coming in for the revenge kill. There's the Cross Chop, there's the dead Blissey. This one moving quite a bit faster than the previous game. We've got ourselves a 4-3. Linear still hiding 2 Pokemon in the back. Aerodactyl, UD's basically only win condition at this point, makes a reappearance and is going to have to get something done here. Maybe if he's got HP Flying, he simply clicks that and prays for a critical hit. Likewise, if he makes a money prediction here, he does go for HP Flying, he does go for the pray for a crit plan, but he doesn't get it. However, Cross Chop doesn't crit either, so Aerodactyl, even though he doesn't take it very well, is going to survive it, and the much faster Aerodactyl with the momentum here. He might be obligated to HP Flying again, even though there's a good chance that a Flying Resist is going to come in. I have a hard time believing that the only Flying Resist on the entire team for Linear would have been the now dead Magneton. You would think there's another Flying Resist somewhere in the back, and UD plays accordingly. This works as well. He gets Gengar in on the Cross Chop. This is going to enable him to get some value out of the Gengar that he wasn't going to get before. This is a free Thunderbolt, a free Boom, maybe a free chance at Hypnosis if he has that. Will-O-Wisp maybe on a switch. UD here now has an opportunity to make a little bit of a comeback. Linear is obviously not going to let a valuable target get blown up on here. He's not going to, if he has like Last Poke Swampert or something, not going to switch to that, let that get crit by a Boom, and then let the Aerodactyl go insane. Never going to let the Bulky Water get killed here. But nevertheless, UD with an opportunity to get a knockout or do some damage. We don't actually know this Gengar has Boom. We've only seen Will-O-Wisp. It totally still could or may not have Boom. He's going to go Thunderbolt on this turn. That's going to even us up at 3-3. Obviously, the Umbreon is going to come in for the revenge kill. Pursuit's going to be the play here. So does Gengar Boom? Does Gengar try to have Hypnosis here? Double Status Guard does exist, but it's a much older and at this point pretty uncommon set that he probably doesn't have. And the best thing he seems to be able to do on the way out is land a Will-O-Wisp. So Umbreon is going to be burnt. However, the Gengar is going to die. So it is only the T-Tar and the Aerodactyl for UD trying to beat Linear 2-0 here. Linear still has not shown both of his last 2 pokes and is trying to send us to a Game 3. Aerodactyl doing Aerodactyl things here. There's a Rock Slide flinch. Here's another Rock Slide. That'll kill Umbreon. We've got ourselves a 2-2, but here is Heracross in the back for Linear. That seems very dangerous in this situation. UD might be checkmated here unless he can rattle off a bunch of Rock Slide flinches. He may have to go for it here. If he fodders off Tower to a Brick Break, it may be a situation where Linear's last poke makes it so no matter what move the follow-up Aerodactyl were to click, he'd be stuck on it with Choice Band, and there is no move that would get both the Heracross and the poke in the back for Linear. For that reason, UD may be obligated to simply Rock Slide here and just get there. I don't know that foddering off the T-Tower is a winning play. Let's say he fodders off T-Tower. Let's say Aerodactyl comes in, goes hidden power flying, kills the Heracross. All Linear has to do at that point is go, hey, last poke Rachi, and it's over. It is unwinnable for UD at that point. He's going to go back to the Tar. It's going to die to Megahorn. I think we're going to Game 3. I think that I don't agree with that play for UD. I think he had to play for a flinch or two. Had he gone for a Rock Slide there's a decent chance that the Heracross either misses the Megahorn or gets flinched. And now I'm anticipating a Rock Resist comes in and UD cannot win. It's not a Rock Resist, but a crit will be necessary here. So UD has a one-turn window to find a crit, which ironically, he did that successfully last round against ABR to knock him out. So we'll have that opportunity once again. A critical hit here would end it, but he doesn't find it. It is not the Flying Resist or the Rock Resist that I was thinking that it might be in the back. This team is interesting for Linear. It's been one of those sets. UD brought the first standard team of the whole set in this game and did not win with it, but it's been a really close back and forth set. Games coming down to the wire, and as expected, based on that really bad start for UD, we are in fact going to a third game. Just a matter of waiting for it to start, but there was a bit of a gap last time between Game 1 and Game 2. Maybe we'll see that again. I'll just take this opportunity here to grab another sip of my drink. Yeah, and we'll wait for Game 3, but yeah, unsurprisingly, I mean, these guys are just so evenly matched. It went to 3 last time. In their previous set, not only did it go to 3, but all the games were really close. I would expect nothing less from these players, and I think that's what we're going to see again here. I'm very intrigued by what they're going to bring. UD's been bringing weird shit all tour, and then, of course, in this game, he switches it up and goes standard. He's been difficult to predict. Linear brings Umbreon twice in a row. He's on quite the kick here. He's been using Heracross a lot in tournament play in recent times. Don't know that I necessarily love that poke against UD. UD is someone who is very well known to not like Dugtrio, not use that poke a lot, so perhaps for that reason something like a Heracross is more dangerous, but UD also uses a lot of Gengar, a lot of Aerodactyl, a lot of fast things like that, that might keep a Heracross in check, so I don't know. I'm very curious what the reasoning is on back-to-back Umbreon teams from Linear. And it's not just him either. We've seen the Umbreon a number of times in this tour. I don't have the usage stats pulled up in front of me at this moment, but we have seen I mean, not a ton, but Umbreon is a poke that is a very, very, very small part of the metagame, and I think has been probably overrepresented in this tour. It's probably been used more often than it typically would based on the amount of games that we've had so far. Just waiting on the Game 3, guys. I mean, I don't blame either of them for taking their time. This is a huge, huge match. One of them is going to be left in the top 4 of the lower bracket after this happens, with a very good chance to make a run at the money, which both of them have made before. And there's certainly got to be mental gymnastics between these two guys because they do have so much history. They do know each other so well. I'm sure they're both mentally going back and forth. What if I bring this? What if I bring this? What if he brings this? What if he brings that? Really, really hard call to make. You don't want to walk yourself into a disaster matchup in Game 3, but you also don't want to just bring bog standard, predictable, your opponent knows what you have on turn 2, and it's a fine line between bringing a team that is going to get the job done versus a team that isn't overly afraid of what your opponent's going to have, isn't overly predictable. Linear hasn't been too afraid of people trying to counter team him. He's been bringing some weird shit. I don't know if I haven't gotten a chance to talk to him recently. I don't know for him how much of it is just him bringing stuff that he just thinks is good, period, versus making the choice specifically because of who his opponent is. Now, like I said, because this is only a couple hours after I announced the pairing, certainly these guys did not spend all week building teams specifically to beat this opponent. So it's not that. It's not that they are busting out their anti-UD or anti-linear counter teams per se, but what they are doing and are still doing, which is probably the biggest reason there's such a gap right now in between the games, they're going over their options. They have a pool of teams. Which of these 3, 4, 5 should I bring to this matchup? So no, it's not something they specifically built to beat this other guy, but they are definitely factoring in right now, what do I want to bring against this guy? Out of these choices, which one of these makes the most sense? And like I said, I think that's probably the biggest factor for the gaps here in between the games, which we've had in both instances. I would think they're starting up anytime. But yeah, man, both these games pretty close, I would say. And I expect another barn burner for the third game. I really wonder if Linear's going to bring an Umbreon a third time. There we go. Here's the game. We're going to find out. This is the third and final game between these players. One of them will be eliminated. Will it be CALLOUS Invitational 1 champion and CALLOUS Invitational 2 runner-up, the Thelinearcurve, or will it be CALLOUS Invitational 1 third place finisher, UD, who already beat Linear earlier in this tournament? One of these guys has got to go, and no Umbreons and Metachams or any of that nonsense just yet. Very standard leads for both of them for this decisive game. In fact, it's the two most common leads in the gen. Tyranitar and Zapdos respectively. Linear on the bottom again, UD on the top again. And here is the BP as the T-Tower opts to stay in. BP2 hasn't figured that out yet. UD figuring out how he wants to respond. He knows there's not a Focus Punch coming here, so you would think it's going to be a Rock Slide or an Ice Beam. And I agree with the meta because it resists both of those things, but in fact, it was a Crunch. We see that the Metagross has leftovers here. Don't know if it outspeeds the Tar or not, but he absolutely has to be afraid of a fast special Tar that could just have Fire Blast here and toast the Metagross. UD does not want to repeat the mistake of last game of getting in a very, very early hole by making the wrong prediction. I would think that Metagross, unless it has Protect here, needs to get out of the way. Can you risk the T-Tar either surviving your Meteor Mash or outspeeding you and Fire Blasting you down? Now, obviously, UD knows his speed. He could just be a 222 or whatever. I mean, really, even 200 and change is almost certainly faster than a special Tar. Man, something in my throat. Sorry about that. DD is usually the only set. DD and Choice Band are the only sets that go over 200. UD sees it differently than I do. He does outspeed and he does stay in for the Meteor Mash, but he's going to miss. However, Linear's going to miss as well with the Fire Blast here. So, that was actually a good turn for UD. Not only did he learn, yes, he's faster, if there was any doubt, he now knows he's faster, but he's also going to get more lefties, but he's going to miss a second Meteor Mash in a row. Linear is not going to miss a second Fire Blast in a row. Down goes the meta. Very poor start for UD in this Game 3. Especially if the plan here, Dougie is more and more common of a partner with Zapdos these days because it's such a great trap to just baton pass to things that switch into Zapdos and kill with Dougie. But now, because the Meteor Mash didn't even hit, now the Dugtrio might not be able to follow up and kill the Tyranitar, so he doesn't go for it here. Now, I might have anyway, because Dugtrio maybe survives whatever the T-Tar throws at it. Like, basically anything other than an Ice Beam there. Like, it would have survived. A Dugtrio would survive an HP Grass there, for example. So I'm going to say that UD probably doesn't have Dugtrio. A, because I think he would have gone for it there, and B, because he just doesn't like that poke. But we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. Looks pretty standard here. Oh, other than that, the poke is standard, but the move isn't. There's a Thunderbolt from Tar. Is this a Tyrannoboa that we're seeing here, which is an ancient set that a lot of you newer to ADV guys, you might not even know what the fuck that is when I say Tyrannoboa, and I don't blame you. This is an antiquated set. This is before you fuckers were even born. But the Tyrannoboa is Substitute Focus Punch, Crunch, Thunderbolt with a quiet nature. I have no clue if that's what we're looking at here. That set, like I said, predates your existence. But if UD has that here, that would be pretty cool to see. Linear here is busting out. Oh, man, the weird shit continues. We've got Hariyama for a second time, and we've got Registeel here. Linear has not been afraid to bring weird shit in tournament games. This is the Jump Bluff guy, remember? Not afraid to bust out the weird shit. And here is UD going to Celebi here as his answer to the Registeel. He's got to be careful to not just get blown up on here. Registeel, as with all the Reggies, does indeed learn Explosion, Calm Mind, and Seismic Toss. So favorable turn for UD. But that does not for a second mean that the Registeel doesn't have Boom. You don't just boom there at 100% because you can. Just kind of feeling out the water, knows that he's not in really any danger. I mean, really, what could the Celebi have done? There's nothing there. Even a critical hit HP Fire would not be anywhere near enough for the one-hit KO there. There's actual nothing Celebi could do to get the knockout in that situation. So no reason to blow up there if you're Linear. Still very well may have it in the back. Now for UD, he's got this Calm Mind. What kind of Celebi are we looking at here? Is he baton passing that boost? Is he going to sub up and try to get blown up on and or block a status move? Because Registeel often carries either Thunder Wave or Toxic Health. Sometimes it even has both. Is he an offensive Celebi? Is he going to start firing off +1 HP fires here? It is UD who's taking the time here. Whatever move Linear is making, which very well might just be another boring Seismic Toss, has been decided for a while. It is UD figuring out what to do. And he's taking, probably creeping up on a minute here and change. Has to be very careful here. Doesn't want to BP to something and get it hit by a Thunder Wave or Toxic. Doesn't want to get a bad target blown up on. I think a Boom is very unlikely on this turn for Linear. I think we're looking at either a status move or a Seismic Toss. I mean, the generic safe thing to do is just a Seismic Toss again. And that's what Linear is going to go for. And I don't blame him there. Now, I'd be a little bit more concerned about a status move or a Boom. I don't know that this is going to be another S-Toss. Totally could be. But Seismic Toss does not kill the Celebi here, even with the sand. Got to be careful at this point if you're Linear about the Celebi baton passing out to something here. We still don't actually know the set. The other thing is that it could be a Recover Celebi. We don't know that either. But this is a little bit trickier. The last turn I felt was relatively straightforward because the Celebi was, the Registeel rather, was not in actual danger. Nor was the Celebi. He's going to go aggro here. HP Fire, and it's just another Seismic Toss, the third one in a row. That leaves Celebi in the red. This is a tricky turn. Does Celebi recover? Does Celebi BP? It's a baton pass here. Will something get blown up on? Here's Zapdos, going to be immediately met with Thunder Wave, which is crippling, but doesn't necessarily kill the Zapdos. The best offense, other than Boom, that the Registeel should have here is just the Seismic Toss. So Zapdos will be able to eat at least one, if not two of those, and might be able to get some highly powered Thunderbolts coming in return. +2/+2 Zapdos is no joke, and based on what we've seen from Linear, he has no good switch in. T-Tar doesn't, certainly, I mean, not Scarm and Starmie, LOL. The Hariyama, I don't even know if that survives a +2 Thunderbolt from 75%. Certainly doesn't survive +2 Thunderbolt plus Sand from that HP. I don't know, maybe Linear just stays in and Seismic Tosses again. I mean, he'll live a Thunderbolt, assuming no crit, or a bad 10% power would also be obnoxious, but maybe you just Seismic Toss again if you're Linear, and then reassess your turn. I mean, the Zapdos could always just randomly full para here, and you always have the option to just click Boom if things really get bad. I think Linear may just Seismic Toss again. But now it's Linear taking the time here. Yeah, I can't imagine he has too many choices. He doesn't seem to have a good switch. Yeah, that's got to be the play. I agree with seismic tossing there. I think he was just calking to make absolutely certain, even if the Zapdos is max modest, that he can't kill him there. And the answer is no, he can't. That Thunderbolt did a lot. 56% is a huge chunk, but is it enough? And it looks like no. Now for Linear, now do you boom? He might still seismic toss here to basically leave the Zapdos very low and paralyzed, and you follow up with Starmie or whatever to force it out. But it's hard for me to imagine. Here's the thing with Boom. Like, UD could just baton pass out here is where it gets tricky. What could happen here, if Linear were to go Seismic Toss again, is the Zapdos eats it and then BP's elsewhere. Now all of a sudden the Registeel rather is not very well equipped at its low HP to deal with something else with all these boosts. That's a backbreaking full power for UD. It happens when you get Thunder Wave. Paris happens sometimes, but that was a terrible time. Maybe he could have BP'd to something else, but now I think UD is in some real trouble. Backbreaking full power, awful time for that. Linear in a really good position to take his revenge on UD, who beat him earlier in this tournament, and take the set 2-1. UD is going to have to gain some momentum back with this Tyranitar. We've seen Brick Break Thunderbolt, so it is not a traditional Boa set. Could just be a 4-attack mixed Tar. He's going to be faster here than the very slow Registeel, and Brick Break would not kill here, nor would Thunderbolt. So by making this switch, he is representing that he has either Earthquake or a Fire attack. Fire Blast or Flamethrower. And it is again Linear taking the time here, not wanting to choke away what is clearly an advantageous position for him. I don't know, if I'm Linear here, I would strongly consider going to Hariyama, I think. What's the worst that could happen? Neither Earthquake nor Fire Blast / Flamethrower would be that devastating on the Hariyama, and I think you do still potentially have some value to be gained out of the Registeel here. I do not think I would just leave it in to die for free to the Fire Blast or the Flamethrower. But as it turns out, UD doesn't have those, or he doesn't go for it. It might have just been an over-prediction, but he went for the Brick Break there. Comes well short of killing the Registeel here, and Rest gets off. Bad to worse for UD. He misses his window here to kill the Registeel. Again, we don't actually know if he had a fire attack, but you would think if that's his switch when he had 4 options available to him, that he does have it and that he simply made the wrong prediction. But man, that leaves him in a tough spot. And the answer now is going to be Snorlax for UD. We haven't seen the last move from Registeel, but I'm thinking it's probably Boom. Focus Punch coming down. And that's going to hit Skarm. 38%. Not the worst, I guess. UD really needs to find a crit or get some kind of luck here to get back into this. The fact that it's a Focus Punch Lax means it is obviously not a Cursed Rest Lax, so setting up a very, very boosted Lax is not going to be an option for him here. Spikes and Focus Punch. Here's Focus Punch again. That's going to get protected again, so all that does is kill a Focus Punch PP and more importantly gain some lefties on Skarm. Focus Punch again, and that's going to get disrupted by what looks to be a YOLO Skarm with good old Hidden Power Ground. Goes Focus Punch again, and once again is disrupted. UD is not able to gain any ground, losing this 1v1 at the moment as the Skarm continues to lefty up. And UD is going to reveal Counter, which was intended to be a surprise there, but he's going to do that not into HP ground like he was hoping, but rather into a Protect. UD just not able to gain any momentum in this Game 3. Finally, he makes the right prediction. He counters on the Hidden Power Ground. Down goes the Skarm after setting up only 1 layer spikes. And here is the Hariyama follow-up, which looks very challenging for UD right now. Celebi dead on arrival to the spikes. Last Poke Salament's going to be the only hope here. Neither the T-Tar nor the Lax are equipped to handle the fighting type Hariyama, so it's going to have to be Salamence here. And the last poke for Linear is also Salamence, as it turns out. There's Dragon Dance from UD. Both of them have leftovers. UD is faster now. Will he go for Dragon Dance again and risk a Dragon Claw on the other side? He won't. He'll go Rock Slide and he'll find the flinch. Exactly what UD needed here. Now we've got ourselves a game. Will he attack or will he DD up here? This is very scary for UD. He goes Rock Slide again. He feels obligated, and I don't blame him. It's so hard to DD there when it could easily be a mixed Mence on the other side that simply kills you by clicking Dragon Claw, and that would end the game for UD effectively because that would leave him with only T-Tar and Lax against the Hariyama that they cannot beat. So UD felt obligated to attack there, and indeed that's what he did. Rock Slide didn't let him down, didn't miss either time, and it got him a clutch flinch when he needed it. Down goes the opposing Mence, and UD with a glimmer of hope that he can maybe get back in this game. We are now at a 3-4 situation. UD, as he has been throughout the game, is behind. Linear's Registeel is due to wake up. Seismic Toss plus Sand, I don't know if that gets him here from 32%. I want to say that it comes just short since Lax has that ridiculous 400 plus HP. But both players taking the time here. This could just be a generic Thunder Wave turn. You can't go too far wrong if you're Linear by Thunder Waving here. None of the pokes remaining. The Lax, the Salamence, or the T-Tower can do much of anything about it. The only way that would get punished is if there were a crit Focus Punch on the Thunder Wave turn from UD. He also may just go for Self-Destruct here for lack of better things to do. Focus Punch counter, 2 other moves, one of which almost certainly is going to be Boom. And both the players using their clock here in this pretty fucking pivotal turn in Game 3. I think it's a Thunder Wave from Linear. That would be my guess. For UD, I'm not as clear. He could go Focus Punch. He could just blow up on it. Registeel wakes up and goes Seismic Toss, and I am correct in that it is not enough to kill, but it is just self-destruct there as opposed to counter from UD. That leaves us in a 2-4 situation. Salamence by far the best and only hope for UD, and here it comes. He's going to come in. Is he going to go straight Earthquake? Is he going to try to bait the Boom here by going to the T-Tar? He certainly, even if it doesn't have Boom, he does not want to get hit with a Thunder Wave here. So I think if he's making this switch, he's going immediately for Earthquake. Thunder Wave would be devastating on the Salamence here. He cannot afford that. So I think UD is representing straight Earthquake by making this play. Linear has to calc if he can survive that or not. It's probably a closer calc than you think. Registeel very, very naturally bulky. Its problem is not its bulk by any means. It's that it has no offensive presence, and that is probably the end of the line for UD. He goes Brick Break. He probably doesn't have Earthquake. I think he has Brick Break instead of Earthquake, and he's going to be kicking himself. Earthquake there, with its considerably higher base power, would have been enough. Brick Break is not enough. Registeel is going to survive and get a Thunder Wave off, and I think UD is in real fucking trouble now, but he's going to try to get out of this anyway. There's the Brick Break and the KO. If Starmie has the combination of Surf and Ice Beam, or Hydro Pump and Ice Beam, that will end this game for UD. Here comes Tyranitar, showing us Crunch and Fire Blast. Does it have Ice Beam here? Crunch will not kill without a crit. Rock Slide would do it. Ice Beam would do it. Does he have either of those moves? He's switching T-Tar into a Salamence that he knows has Brick Break on the other side. He goes Pursuit. It was a nice elaborate bluff there for Linear. He actually didn't have Rock Slide or Ice Beam. He simply went for Pursuit. And UD did in fact get out of the way. The faster Tar belongs to UD. He gets a Brick Break off. He's looking for a crit and does not get it. He has to suffer a 19% crunch in return. What I think Linear's doing here is he is softening up the Tyranitar to get it into the range for the Starmie. The Tyranitar, theoretically, with the right BS, could beat the Hariyama if it doesn't have Brick Break and Cross Chops just miss all day, if he's got Ice Beam and he freezes them, if one of these Thunderbolts full paras him. There are theoretical, mathematical things that would allow the Tyranitar to beat the Hariyama, however unlikely. Hariyama overwhelmingly favored in that matchup, but it is not a 100% lock. UD here figuring out what to do. His options very limited at this point. It is only the T-Tar and the low paralyzed Salamence against the 3 remaining pokes for Linear. It is, as predicted, as we all knew it would be, another very close game. Back and forth, wire-to-wire game between these two players. These just ridiculously equally matched, super talented players. There's the Brick Break knockout. 2-2 situation, to the surprise of no one. But can the Starmie get it done here? That's going to be the plan. Does he have Hydro Pump? Is Surf enough? It comes up short. There's the crunch. This leaves us in a one-on-one situation here after Hariyama kills T-Tar. It's going to be Salamence, which is going to get an Intimidate off, but it's paralyzed against the Hariyama. This is going to come down to the absolute effing wire. And who would have it any other way? This is all going to come down to whether or not the Hariyama can kill the low paralyzed Salamence. That, however, that is going to get an Intimidate off and resists fighting. Will Cross Chop here, if it doesn't crit, will it be enough? HP Flying, if UD gets an opportunity to click it here, will end the game. And there's the anticlimactic finish. Linear does have the Rock Slide in the back. Would have been way more exciting if his last 2 moves were Knock Off and Rest, but instead he does have the Rock Slide, and the only out there for UD would have been dodging that Rock Slide and not being fully paralyzed to get the Hidden Power flying off. But unfortunately for UD, and fortunately for Linear, the 90-10 Rock Slide does cooperate. And in a ridiculously close set, as always between these two, Linear will get his revenge on UD and eliminate the only player who has beaten him thus far in this tournament, knocking out UD, who makes a great run and really looked better in this tournament than he has looked in years. Glad I invited him. Definitely deserved his spot and made a great run, and easily could have beaten Linear here and been the guy to advance himself. Alright guys, long narration. That was over an hour, and I've had my dinner waiting for me for at least half of this, so gonna go enjoy that if it's not really cold already. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thumbs up if you did, and there will be even more CALLOUS Invitational 4 content coming up soon.